Here's a fact you may not know. Loneliness can be as bad for your health as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. And that's according to the Surgeon General. The good news, there are plenty of ways lonely people can improve their health and emotional well-being. Medical reporter Lorie explains.
Like millions of Americans, Ann Hales knows the depression and anxiety caused from feeling isolated.
Well, I was at home, no one there but myself, and it was so lonely I just didn't know what to do.
An introvert by nature, Ann stepped out of her comfort zone by joining a church sewing ministry.
And I've met so many people. My horizons have been broadened, and I don't have that loneliness anymore that I had before. It was terrible.
Ann's story shows how in-person social connection really helps.
Church is what's known as the third place, right behind home and work. People who regularly go to their third place tend to experience less loneliness and have overall better mental health.
Other third places range from clubs to community centers to coffee shops.
This might be going to the small group. This might be adding an accountability group, or it might just be a conversation on your back porch with a couple friends, as long as you have it regularly.
In his book, Made for People, Justin Earley says God's plan involves living in community.
We should understand friendship not as a luxury, but as a necessity to living the good life, physically and spiritually.
He believes the goal of regularly getting together with friends is vulnerability that ultimately leads to intimacy.
There's a difference between looking out into the world side by side, and that's meaningful, and turning to each other and saying, now let's talk about each other.
Don't make the mistake, however, of substituting online connections with the real thing.
There's studies that show that, the receptors in our brain, as we scroll through reels and, we get likes on certain things, there are centers in our brains that light up for that. But that's all short-lived. And all of a sudden, we're programming our brain to have these responses from a screen.
Doctors say even a little personal interaction is better than none at all.
It's okay to say hi to a stranger. Just a smile, just a quick hello. You don't know what they're dealing with that day. Not only is it good for your mental health, but it's probably great for theirs as well.
And kids feel lonely too.
It's so easy nowadays for families to come home and they just sort of isolate all separately into their own bedrooms and usually online.
Parents can help by getting kids together with their friends.
Make your home the place that you invite the friends over, buy a bunch of snacks, and maybe they watch a movie, but you got to take the phones out of their hands.
And for inspiration, Americans can look to Israel, which has next to no self-reported loneliness.
Communities don't create rituals. Rituals create communities.
In his book, The Genius of Israel, Dan Senor points out how Israelis bond over regular Hebrew rituals, such as Shabbat.
And if you go walk by any home in Israel on a Friday night, you will see whether they're secular Jews or they're very religious, traditional, observant Jews, they're all doing the same thing. And so there's this weekly ritual that brings people together.
He adds that Israelis see connecting to each other as part of something larger than themselves.
The whole notion of living in Israel is about togetherness and not just about doing whatever you do successfully on your own.
So in America, where many continue to struggle with loneliness, experts recommend a course correction by putting down the phone and prioritizing in-person relationships. Lorie Johnson, CBN News.
I couldn't agree more. Get out and get into community. One of the most spiritual things you can do in life is to help somebody else, because in doing that, you're actually helping yourself. You're building community. So often our holidays, and whether it's Christmas, Thanksgiving, our times of getting together as family are far too infrequent. What used to be the Sunday supper, which is remarkably similar to Shabbat celebrations in Israel, that used to be such a cultural tradition in America, and it seems to have completely evaporated. Let's bring that back so that every week we come together, put away our phones, and break bread together. It seemed that Jesus and the disciples did that a great deal. Let's imitate that. But most importantly, let's help one another. When you do that, amazing things can happen.